2 minutes past 7. We're going to leave the business now and have a look at what the French papers are saying this morning and the headlines here in France. Diptyque Laurent is here. Good morning, Diptyque.
Good morning.
We begin with Le Monde's reporting, and we've been talking about it in the news bulletin, that a second suspect is on the streets and on the run after the Brussels attacks of Tuesday morning.
It's on their front page, Melissa. Belgian authorities, as you said, are looking for a second suspect linked to the bombing at the Malbec train station. Now, according to Le Monde, this man was seen in video surveillance tape accompanying Khaled El-Bakraoui, the man who was detonated the bomb in the metro. And this suspect was actually carrying a large bag. And this, of course, is in addition to the other man that authorities are looking for, that man that we've seen in photos diffused by the Belgian press, the man wearing the hat and white jacket. So the latest news is really, I guess, further proof that the sleeper cells behind the Paris and Brussels attacks do go really, really deep.
And it is those links between the two attacks that is the focus of Libération this morning.
The same team, that's what Libé is saying on its front page. The three men identified in Tuesday's attacks, no doubt, had links to Saleh Abdeslam, and who was one of the architects of the Paris attacks and who's now in police custody. Now, Najim Lashraoui, for instance, the attacker at the Zaventem airport, spent time in Syria, and according to Libé's information, Abdeslam was, quote, no doubt responsible for bringing him back to Belgium. Now, the deaths of the Paris attackers, as well as the three men from Tuesday's attacks, may signal the end of one jihadi cell, but for Libération, it's certainly probable, or it's certain, that other sleeper cells are starting to activate, to sort of come from underground. Like, for instance, and they use one incident to highlight this. There was a suspicious activity in December last year when an Algerian man and Pakistani man were arrested in Salzburg, and in their possession, authorities found a Turkish cell number in one of their phones, and this number was actually found on a piece of paper at Stade de France after that suicide bomber blew himself up. So information keeps going.
The information keeps coming in as the investigation deepens. There's a good deal of focus as well ever since they claimed responsibility on the Islamic group organization.
That's right, Melissa. The investigative website Mediapart has put together quite a comprehensive analysis on this in what they call the hierarchy of terror, the so-called hierarchy of terror. They cite information from French Interior Intelligence Services last October, saying that there are 642 French people who are in Syria, who are recorded as being in Syria. Of them, 2/3 are over 30 years old, and 36 of them are over 40 years old. Now, even scarier is that a lot of them have already been interrogated or were previously interrogated by French and foreign intelligence services. So this information really for Mediapart sort of shows that the people, at least the French nationals who are involved with the Islamic State group, are not the low level young people that we've been seeing, but rather they're playing more of a coordinator role. And a jihadist turned informer allegedly told French intelligence services after the November attacks that arresting these men at the top of the chains, so to speak, would be, quote, a jackpot for them. So
there are those, however, wondering whether the Islamic State group really was behind the attacks, amongst them the Huffington Post.
That's right. They've really dissected the statement from the Islamic State group. Now, it's not uncommon for terror groups to seize on opportunities for propaganda, and that seems to be the angle that the Huffington Post is taking. They say they've detected, quote, errors in the statement, and one of them is the group did not mention how many attackers were behind the Brussels attacks. They said, quote, a certain number of Caliphate soldiers took part, and for the Huffington Post, this is in direct contrast to the statement released just after the Paris attacks, where they did confirm.
When they've been extremely specific.
Exactly. They did say 8 men. It later turned out to be 10, but they did say 8 men were behind that. So that for the Huffington Post is a smoking gun.
It raises questions. A lot of criticism, of course, about Europe's handling of the terror threat.
I'll go into this in more detail in the international press because there is, of course, a lot of the international papers that are talking about it. But here in France, they have also raised questions. Le Figaro asks on its front page, terrorism, Europe, can Europe defend itself? And I think that seems to be a very legitimate question right now. Basically, the paper says 14 months after the Charlie Hebdo attacks, European leaders are still divided. They're incapable of coordinating together. And this is, I quote, because they've never been able to get past federalism, that idea that national governments have more superiority than at European level. And this, for Le Figaro, is a real problem.
As a result of all that's happened, Dipti, there's been a good deal of discussion about reinstating border controls in Europe. One publication, however, is vehemently opposed.
It's not a surprise. It's from L'Opinion, which, of course, is a right-wing publication. They vehemently defend Schengen in this editorial, saying building walls is as feasible as tigre de papier, paper tigers. That's a very loose translation, which basically means flimsy. It's useless. It doesn't serve any purpose. Now, the paper defends the euro currency. It defends free circulation of goods and people, and says that while Schengen is ruined, re-establishing borders will be a big blow to European construction, growth, and its attractiveness to the world.
Now we're going to end with Le Figaro, with a newspaper suggesting that Germany might be the next target.
That's right. It's only a question of time. That's what Le Figaro is saying in this sidebar article this morning. A director for the German Interior Services has warned that Germany could face a similar scenario to that of Brussels. And proof of this is a worrying episode dating back to last October when Saleh Abdeslam went to the German region of Baden-Württemberg, which we've heard a lot about in the press recently. He stayed there for an hour near an asylum seeker center, and the next day, 3 men who had presented themselves as Syrians had disappeared, leading German police to believe that they may have been accomplices.
Dipti Laurent, look there at the French press. We'll be hearing from you later on in the morning. The look at the international headlines this morning. Thanks very much indeed. 28 minutes past 7, a quick break in the headlines in just a moment.